The Jets are reaching new levels of disarray, and the 76ers could be approaching similar lows. ESPN is ending one of its most recognizable shows, and we have new reporting on the offer from Unrivaled to Caitlin Clark. Later, we're chatting with an executive at SailGP on the process of growing a new league from scratch. It's Friday, November 22nd. I'm your host, Owen Poindexter, and this is Front Office Sports Today. In today's episode, we are chatting with my colleague Alex Schiffer about the state of the Jets after they fired their GM, and new reporting suggests that their owner, Woody Johnson, floated the idea of benching Aaron Rodgers. Plus, a famous singer helped recruit a player to the soccer team he owns a piece of, and Joel Embiid is not happy that an unfavorable story about him made it into the media. Later, we're chatting with SailGP's Chief Revenue Officer, Ben Johnson, on how they have sought to grow that league from the ground up. Here are your top headlines. ESPN has made substantial changes in the past year, and they are showing zero signs of slowing down as they prepare for the launch of their flagship streaming service. The New York Post reported on Thursday morning that Disney would be canceling Around the Horn in 2025, which has been a staple on ESPN for 23 years. The talk show has featured some of the most notable faces and voices in sports media since launching, with Max Kellerman as the host in 2002. Kellerman was succeeded by Tony Reali, who has hosted the show for the last 2 decades. Separately, the company also announced that legendary NBA coach and broadcaster Hubie Brown would be sent off in style at the end of the season by calling ESPN's final regular season game. Plenty of change coming at the mouse. From old to the new in the NBA, the league is planning to roll out yet another new format for its All-Star game. ESPN reports that the NBA is implementing a pickup-style tournament for this year's game, which will include 4 teams playing in semifinal matchups to 40 points, and the winner of each game facing off in a 25-point winner-take-all contest. 3 of the 4 teams will be composed of all-stars. The final group will be the winners of the Rising Stars competition. Adam Silver promised a new format for the game earlier this month. This certainly delivers on that. Front Office Sports has confirmed that Caitlin Clark has told the new Unrivaled Women's Hoops League that she will not be participating this season. FOS sources say that the league's invitation will remain open, and that if Clark doesn't suit up this year, the league hopes Clark will play in Season 2 or 3 when it's more established. Sticking with women's hoops, the LA Sparks became the latest WNBA team to invest in a practice facility, which is quickly becoming an important criteria for free agents coming to play for a team. Sparks Governor Eric Holloman said that the facility is, quote, part of a broader vision to elevate the LA Sparks as the premier franchise in the WNBA and to create an environment where our players have every resource they need to achieve greatness. The team also just announced Lynn Roberts as their new coaching hire. The NFL has issued a memo to teams warning them of player-targeted burglaries after Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce both had their homes broken into just 1 day apart in October. In its memo, the league says that groups are organized and skilled and specifically focus on game days when players are able to have their whereabouts tracked more easily. Mahomes said the burglary was disappointing and that the investigation was still ongoing. The Aaron Rodgers era has been an unmitigated disaster for the New York Jets, and this week, following the firing of GM Joe Douglas, reporting came out that the team's owner, Woody Johnson, suggested benching the legendary quarterback earlier this year. My colleague Alex Schiffer has been chronicling this team's descent as both a reporter and a fan, and he joins us next. Joined now by Front Office Sports breaking news and enterprise reporter Alex Schiffer. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks for having me, Owen.
Great to have you on, though maybe not your favorite topic, because we're here to talk about a team near and dear to your heart, the New York Jets. So in this week, they have fired their GM, Joe Douglas. We also got a report that their owner, Woody Johnson, floated the idea of benching Aaron Rodgers earlier in the season, disputing reports over like how serious that was, but at least sounds like he was sort of open to the idea. Anyway, just give me kind of your state of this team right now. Is how bad is this disarray?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm reevaluating what near and dear means to me in light of all this. I mean, it's a mess. I think the toughest thing for fans to swallow about all this is that I don't really think there's a light at the end of the tunnel right now. This is a complete reset. They're getting a new GM, a new coach. I think Woody Johnson's reputation is at an all-time low. So who can they get, and who can they get that's going to have the flexibility to do what needs to be done? I never really believed the Super Bowl hype with this team. I mean, you're talking about a team that hasn't made the playoffs since I was in high school. And in the AFC, you have to go through Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, now CJ Stroud. And if you get past some of those guys, you're lucky to get a shot at the king, Patrick Mahomes. And for a team that's never been to the playoffs before, Aaron Rodgers was going to be the one to take them and defy all the odds on that. I thought that was kind of a bit extreme. I thought, Blake breaking the playoff drought was the big goal here, and or more reasonable one, and now that didn't even happen. So I think the toughest thing is just like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. They've proven they can't really develop a quarterback, and they're pressing the reset button and all this, and there's just not really any reason to believe it's going to get better anytime soon.
And does this does it all start for you? I mean, the most recent disaster. Did it all start with bringing in Rodgers? And did the dominoes start falling from there?
I think two things can be true. I think this starts with Woody Johnson at the top as a bad owner, but I think the how we got here starts with picking Zach Wilson second overall in the 2021 draft. I believe that was 2021 draft. Yeah, and like Trevor Lawrence went first. That was, if you remember, the Jets won a game that season before that, like everyone said they won that. Now it's going to cost them Trevor Lawrence. It's not like Trevor Lawrence has become the quarterback everyone thought he'd be. He's been in the playoffs once, but they missed on Zach Wilson, and that was a disaster. Not getting a better backup last year and just letting Zach Wilson ride out the season, I think, was another disaster. But I think that you can't complain about the trade for Rodgers without talking about how they got in a position to trade for Rodgers.
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, maybe they could have had Trevor Lawrence. Hindsight's 2020, but they could have held on to Sam Darnold, who is now the envy of the league practically. Rodgers is he's owed $23.5 million in 2025. He might take himself off their hands by retiring, but he currently says he wants to stick around. Do you think the Jets let him stick around if he says I'm back in?
I think no. I don't see a world in which the decisions to fire Joe Douglas and all that else has followed has come without thinking about Aaron Rodgers' future with the organization. I think he's done. I think that either maybe I have a hard time believing a guy who's been a starter this long is going to be okay just signing to be a backup next year. Maybe a team finds a use for him, but I think he either gets traded for, 60 cents on the dollar, whatever they can get for him, or he just retires, or they find some way to maybe reach a buyout or something, and he goes to free agency and finds a home somewhere. So I think he'll, by the end of the season, would have played his last snap as a Jet.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to overcome a bad owner. It's really hard to overcome a bad, very involved owner. And of course, Woody Johnson wasn't involved for a while because he was the ambassador to the UK, a role he might reprise sometime soon. And actually, I'll ask you that. I mean, things did not go amazingly when things were run by his brother while he was in the UK. But is just like any change a good change in terms of getting Woody Johnson out of the picture for a little while?
No, because as you said, we saw what happened when Chris Johnson ran the team, and that didn't go much better. I think there's a lot of parallels between the Jets and the Chicago White Sox because we're both baseball fans, right? Like, a few years ago, they had all that talent, Yoan Moncada, Eloy Jimenez, and people were talking about them as a potential playoff team for years to come. They never put it all together. They had this historically bad year this year, and it all kind of goes back to Jerry Reinsdorf, right? I think they're similar with the Jets in that they had some of this young talent. They hit on some guys, and they just couldn't put it all together. And now you don't really see a situation in which things change until there's a change in ownership. So Woody Johnson, 77, doesn't seem like he's going to sell the team. I don't know a lot about his kids and if they'd be involved or, Chris Johnson's kids and what would happen down the road. But and the stories that came out about Jerry Reinsdorf after that White Sox season, to me, are kind of similar about what we're talking about with the Jets today, right? So an over-involved owner that just doesn't really let the people do the jobs they were hired for. So, no, I think an ownership change that has the same last name as Johnson does not change this. I think a ownership change that involves the sale of the team from the Johnsons does.
Right, and I feel like it stinks. I mean, it's the hardest thing in sports when you have a bad owner. I think I'm a little older than you. I had to suffer through more Wilpon years with the Mets, but like,
oh, you don't get.
You're just you were stuck with them. Like,
yeah. Are you kidding me? I haven't recovered from 2006.
Yeah. I mean, that was like a ding dong, the witch is dead moment when they finally moved on. And it took them a long time because they like fake moved on, and then anyway. But say what you will about Steve Cohen, but he's doing what he can to put a winner in Queens. But yeah, I mean, some teams they're just stuck. You can have a bad quarterback for a few years and then you move on. You can, make some bad draft picks and then you're back a couple years. You have a bad owner, you're just stuck with that owner until you're not, and that can take decades.
Yeah, no, that's really well said. You look at the Washington Commanders. I think are a really good example of the opposite. Right? They changed ownership. They landed the quarterback. Jaden Daniels has been awesome, and now they look set for years to come. The Jets haven't gone through phase one of that whole process of selling the team, so they can't get to phase two yet. But I think the reality is that, and it goes back to my point about missing on Zach Wilson. I think if you land a quarterback, I think a lot of things can fall into place from there. And it never did for the Jets. And having a bad owner on top of all that has kind of got them to where they are today.
We'll leave it there. Alex Schiffer, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me, Owen.
Celebrities owning small pieces of sports teams has become so normal it's practically just background noise at this point, but sometimes the affiliation can give the team a real boost. That's what happened with Ipswich Town, which is currently trying to climb out of the bottom of the Premier League standings. Singer Ed Sheeran owns a small stake in the team, and it came out this week that last summer he was playing with Taylor Swift at Wembley Stadium, and moments before he stepped on stage, he was pulled into a Zoom call to help recruit a player to join Ipswich Town. The team has not said which player that was, but they did say he has scored multiple goals this season. The best guest is Sammy Smodix, who came over from Blackburn and has posted a picture of himself and Sheeran on Instagram. If Ipswich Town can avoid relegation, they may have Sheeran to thank for it. Over to the NBA, Sixers star Joel Embiid is not happy that someone leaked details of a closed-door team meeting in which his teammate Tyrese Maxey called him out for being late to everything. Embiid said that he needs to be more accountable, but also that part of the meeting took 30 seconds and whoever leaked it is a, quote, piece of shit. When he's healthy, Embiid is one of the best players in the league, but he may also be one of the hardest to manage. Reporter Yaron Weitzman posted an excerpt from his book on the Sixers, Tanking to the Top, in which the team's staff pulled the then head coach Brett Brown into a meeting to discuss the lack of respect shown to them by Embiid. This is a team that has to pull out of their tailspin quickly to have a shot at the playoffs, but with Embiid and Paul George each making over $50 million for each of the next 3 seasons after this one, they're stuck with this core for a long time. When you have a superstar, you have to go for it, but sometimes that decision can backfire in a dramatic way. SailGP is attempting to grow interest in a modern version of an ancient sport. The league races around the globe in hydrofoil boats, most of which hover out of the water. Yesterday, the league announced it had struck a deal with Rolex to be its new title partner, meaning that the league will be called the Rolex SailGP Championship going forward. I spoke with Chief Revenue Officer Ben Johnson on how SailGP has evolved over its early years, and he joins us next. Joined now by SailGP Chief Revenue Officer Ben Johnson. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, Owen. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great to have you on. So your 5th season is about to start at the end of this month. How has SailGP changed over the years?
We change every day, which is one of the fun things about being around and part of a rapid growth sports property. Even in the last few months, as we've gotten ready for our 5th season, the number of new announcements we've had in the past week alone has been almost too much for us to keep up with, which is a great problem to have for an emerging league. But I guess going back a few years, for those of you that haven't seen SailGP yet, we started in 2018, 6 boats on the water. We are now entering our 5th season. We'll have 13 races around the world, and then we have now 12 boats going 60 miles an hour and high speed in these incredible, iconic destinations around the world. So in terms of arc in the last 5 years, the growth has been stunning to watch across broadcast, fan development, and now really on the sponsorship and partnership side.
Yeah, and on those changes, I mean, you're still in some ways a startup, or in like VC terms, you'd think of it that way. How do you know when to make little pivots or big pivots, or versus just saying, we've got our formula and we want to stick to it for a little bit and see how it goes?
Really good question. I think one of the benefits of being a founder-led property, we have a very clear vision of where we're trying to go, and I think it's one of the areas that's opened up so much focus on unique long-term partnerships with brands that we are incredibly proud to be working with. So I think vision is the most important piece, where that allows us, or almost gives us, the responsibility to constantly be iterating around making the product on the water better, making the broadcast better, finding a way to put this in front of new fans is such an exciting challenge to have. So not only are we not taking for granted the growth that we've had in the first 5 years, literally on a week to week, race to race basis, we are reevaluating everything to figure out how we can do more to bring the sport to more fans and better deliver that to our partners.
And on that vision, I mean, beyond just, having a sports property that people watch and enjoy and that makes money, what's the vision?
I mean, the vision is to be a top sports league, a top global sports property, and we think we have every bit of an opportunity and responsibility to be one of the top leagues in the world. So when you think of the Kentucky Derby, the Indy 500, Masters Weekend, those iconic sporting moments that really capture the attention and imagination of sports fans from around the world, that's where we see SailGP. So we are the most exciting race on water. We are a high-speed adrenaline sport. We've got this incredible sort of novelty that we need to deliver to new fans and make sure people appreciate that sailing isn't just a legacy slow sport. But the vision is absolutely to be to make sure that people know that we are one of those great global sporting properties.
I mean, those are interesting, racing comparisons. Kentucky
Yeah,
Derby, Indy 500.
yeah,
I'd throw an F1 if you like.
yeah,
As
sure,
another
yeah,
something that
yeah.
globe trots. What those have that you guys don't is longevity and history. Where it's like if you win the Kentucky Derby, it's like maybe there's another horse race that happened next week that's even more competitive, but no one knows about it because it's not the Kentucky Derby. How do you kind of help not bridge that gap exactly? I don't think that's quite the right term, but how do you make up for or lean into your novelty, I guess, when you don't have the gravitas of like Wimbledon, a Kentucky Derby, or whatever, a 100-year-old F1 race?
Oh, and it's funny because I think it's actually a luxury to be new and building with all the information we have around modern consumption habits and fan affinity and experience, where you see people really looking for those communal moments now from a sports fandom and cultural perspective. So it gives us the benefit to be able to look at our favorite things in modern sports and build around those moments. So I'll give you two very tangible examples at SailGP. We are close to shore racing. These boats feel like they will come up over the wall. You feel like you're almost on them with the athletes as they're going 60 miles an hour past a pier. So that sense of speed, immersive access is something that has not been seen before, at least in this sport. So we know that building stadium racing for modern fans is something that we have the opportunity to deliver at mass in these iconic venues. And then from a distribution perspective, we really have so much knowledge today of where and how fans are discovering, engaging, and consuming modern sports properties that we get to take all that hard-earned knowledge from other properties and really apply that in real time to how are we creating broadcast content that's accessible for fans that have never seen the sport, or something that really showcases the speed and the intensity of the athletes that are every bit the badass athletes of any other sports property. Again, and just something that's probably legacy misunderstood, but gives us that footprint to go and deliver something new to new fans, which I again equate to being more of a luxury problem to have in modern sports than sort of the baggage that comes with a legacy.
Yeah, and on that, just on like the live spectacle, I mean, being able to watch it live. I went to a race in San Francisco a year ago, I believe,
Yeah.
and I know it was a lot of fun. Yeah, you're close
Yes.
to the boats, or close enough. You don't feel, didn't feel endangered, but yeah, you can see
Good.
the people, you can
Yeah.
see them working on there.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of just like logistically getting, you know, as many fans as you can to a temporary venue, I guess, or some temporary stands on the water. And it's something where I could imagine like 1,000 people there just in that one location in San Francisco, but it'd be hard to imagine even like high single digit thousands, let alone tens of thousands at a race. What's kind of the vision or maybe the reality in some places for people watching this live?
So, like every great racing property, we'll have some iconography that goes along with the venues that we're racing in. So, when you think of our, iconic races, when we show up in Sydney Harbor, we have an overwhelming number of fans out on boats around the race course, where they are bringing their, personal family boats, or their coworkers out onto the water to experience the racing in high speed. We've got venues that are much more of a natural amphitheater. We're able to bring in those tens of thousands of spectators. We've had races in New Zealand, where again more ticketing infrastructure that we can possibly build, so that demand continues to grow, and that's tens of thousands of spectators. Even in San Francisco, we've had 10,000 over the weekend across our different ticketing and physical areas. So that's on water, premium hospitality, our grandstands, which are always full. And then if one of my favorites from a experience and access perspective, if you look around the parks where we're racing in Marina Green in San Francisco, at that race you mentioned, there are lined and packed shorelines as people get introduced to this sport for the first time. So I think the opportunity for us to be, again, against a iconic backdrop like the Golden Gate Bridge in Alcatraz, and bringing in people that otherwise wouldn't have necessarily come and experience the sport, seeing it for the first time, getting exposed to the speed, the novelty, the beauty of the F50s in action, and then seeing really that high turnover of year over year, those people coming out, bringing a boat, watching on water, watching on land. So it's tens of thousands of spectators is absolutely the vision, and one that we're already delivering in many of our current race venues.
And if you look at the biggest leagues we have, at least in the US right now, like NFL, NBA, the ticket revenue obviously matters, sponsorship revenue matters, but the broadcast revenue is like the giant, the big thing that matters way more than everything else. For you guys, more of a startup league, still introducing yourselves in a lot of ways. How does that balance shake out?
Yeah, and again, this is one of those modern luxuries where we get to pick what we think is best for our fans and our partners today. So when we look at our existing partners, we see that mutual benefit of growing mass audiences. So right now on broadcast here in the US, we're on CBS Network and CBS Sports Network, as well as Paramount Plus and YouTube. So we have this wide range that we're allowed to, or enabled fans to access our content for the first time. When we think of monetizing the business and growing the business off those different platforms, each gets to have a very different focus for us as a business today. So right now we are, talking today because we just announced DP World and Emirates and Rolex, these incredible iconic brands, Rolex being our first title partner ever for the league. And some of that is they see the opportunity for us to have a very diverse revenue business across different areas and also promote them and build them into the league from a broadcast perspective, where somebody on a new league might be incentivized to go take the largest check on media rights. We are looking at the entire landscape across all of our revenue streams and figuring out what we can do to best deliver to our partners and grow the largest audience.
Just on Emirates, I mean, there's only one of these brands that's almost like Nike, where you, if you're watching sports, you're probably going to see that name somewhere. I'm just curious what it was like working with them and sort of what you feel like each side's getting out of your deal.
I mean, so first of all, so proud for us to be able to add one of those brands that you see doing incredible work, not just on those iconic lifestyle sports properties, but now with the NBA. I think for us, this is where we see our growth point and our build around new fans and new experiences to be so additive to what you see in traditional sports properties. So the big vision for SailGP is not to replace an existing sports property. We don't need to compete with those US sports properties for ticketing attention. We are able to go off and create these incredible novel moments in these iconic destinations with 12 teams. And I think with our partnership with Emirates, we're really able to bring an iconic brand to these fascinating and beautiful locations and build something unique sort of from the ground up. So it's that opportunity for us to be a little bit less encumbered than some traditional properties, and they're more fixed signage, fixed rights, fixed inventory, that we get to go and create some of these partnership platforms from scratch.
Looking into the future, 5 years from now, how is SailGP going to be different from what we see today?
Well, I mean, again, back to the first question of where we see the growth right now. It's literally on a week-to-week basis. So our vision for this, and we've been fortunate that we've got a very clear mandate from Sir Russell Coutts, our founder and CEO, to go and create something that is for a new generation of sports fans. So we see ourselves being able to create those iconic moments on your social calendar in these incredible destinations. It becomes more of a social, sporting, iconic moment for friends, family, coworkers than just a traditional sports property. So I think in 5 years, and not just in 5 years, over the next 5 years, you'll see us continue to grow into one of these can't miss sporting events in all these incredible destinations.
All right, Ben Johnson, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Owen. Really appreciate having us.
Time now for Front Office Sports Tomorrow, where we look ahead to what's coming in the business of sports. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred said that Japanese phenom Roki Sasaki will likely sign with a team as part of the 2025 International Amateur Class, which would mean that he won't join a club until after January 15th. That means that much of the MLB offseason will unfold with the specter of some club getting the winter's biggest bargain. The recruiting process, however, will be in full effect up until then, and you will see rumors of which team he is leaning toward up until the moment he actually picks one. Hopefully not the Dodgers. That's it for today. Leave us a rating or review wherever you like to tune in, or reach out to us on social media or on all the platforms. You can reach out to me there as well. Thanks for listening. We'll see you for our weekend edition tomorrow.